Can the sun's energy power a whole house in northern Minnesota? Heck yeah! We're here at the Evergreen house on a very snowy December day. I've got Josh Vanderberg with me today. He helps with curriculum and training with Green New Deal housing and building science technical advice for us. Today we're going to be talking about solar site assessments, solar energy, and how it matters in a cold climate.
Excellent. Yeah, so thanks, Rachel. And what we're looking at today, basically the first thing we do in site analysis is take a look at the site itself. So that happens in a lot of different ways. In this day and age, some of the things that we're trained on right now would be to take 8 images of this building. So it's as simple as taking out my phone, taking an image from each of the 4 orientations, and then from each of the corners. And then I can send those 8 pictures to Hover or a similar app like that, and it can create all of the 3D dimensions of the building, give me an idea of how much roof area I have available, and all of those dimensions on that building in a really quick, accurate way. And what we're looking for the entire time is to see, do we have a great opportunity for solar here? Here, as we look at the Evergreen house, we have a really nice pitch on the roof. We're not faced quite due south, but we're pretty darn close. So we have a really good advantageous exposure there.
We're actually almost 45 degrees off of due south.
Okay.
Which is an awful lot of the case in Duluth, Minnesota. But I think this is another excellent example of how much opportunity there still is for solar energy, even when your roof doesn't face due south. By the way,
we have an elephant in the room. Well, we do have a tree on site. It's one of the biggest things that we'll see in terms of impact. Sometimes it's other neighboring houses and tall houses that are there, but here, as we look at this, our solar window, which is, to the south over here, we have this tree which is going to have some impacts on the roof. And we actually saw the impacts earlier today because it wasn't cloud covered, and you can see in real time then, where that shadow is cast from that tree. Well, we've got a work table right here.
Yeah, if you want the, he did bring a piece of plywood, so.
No, this will be just fine.
All right.
Now, ideally, we would want to be up on the roof and set up the solar Pathfinder up there, so we could be, at the height that we know where our array is going to be. Today, it's not a great safe day for us to do that, so we're going to set it up down here, and we'll still get a pretty good idea on this, lowermost edge of what's going on as to what the impact is of that tree right there. So I'm going to unpack our solar Pathfinder equipment here, and we'll set it up in our snowbank. It's basically 3 legs. It's pretty low tech, really. And we have just a couple things that we have to be mindful of when we're setting it up. And one of them is we've got a level bubble here. So we'll have to get the bubble in that level, and then we'll have our compass here. So we'll have to get red in the shed so we can get that set up the orientation just right. You're right, we are a little ways off of south, aren't we? A common mistake might be to have it upside down, but here we want to make sure that the solar window, which is represented by this white grid here, is actually faced towards the south.
Oh wow, I am already seeing the impact of that tree.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we take a look at this, this grid that's in here, I'm gonna snap a picture of it, but each line of these grids going this way is the month of the year, and then each line going this way is time of day. And so if we have anything that's within that grid that's showing a shading impact, we'll trace that, and then we'll have to take that out of the production for any system that we might put here. So I'm gonna take that picture quick here. Okay.
For me, the biggest question in using this is how closely do you think we can identify which limbs we could remove and really expand that production capacity of the PV array,
right,
while also trying to maintain the health of what is arguably the only tree of note on this site?
Yeah, so we definitely want to talk with a tree expert about what can be removed and what can't be.
Right.
Theoretically, anything we take out of the tree that we can safely take out of the tree is going to help the production of the
Right.
system.
And so, if I understand correctly, are you going to be able to load this image up onto the internet, and then the NREL's PV Watts site, it'll sync with the actual image to give us an estimate of the production?
Right. Yeah, so I can, on the laptop, I can go in there and I can upload this picture, trace around the tree.
Right.
And then if we decide we want to trim X, Y, or Z, I could do a different trace
Yep.
and then see what that looks
Yeah.
like. I could do it without the tree altogether,
Okay.
with the tree as is, and then
Okay.
any sort of trimming that we might
Okay.
want to do.
All right, what do we
All
have
right,
here, Josh?
So we're going to do open up the Solar Pathfinder Assistant software. What's our zip code?
55805.
805. Okay. So that puts us in Duluth. Excellent. And then the tilt angle that we're going to be using is the angle of your roof. And so you have a 1012, which translates to
It's about a 40 degrees.
38, 40?
30? Oh, no, you.
I don't know. 39.81 degrees.
Oh, I said 40.
Yeah.
Go me. Should have gone with my
You're
first
right on.
statement.
Okay. And then do you know the panels that you have?
I don't.
Do you know the wattage?
Yeah. Oh, it might
Okay.
be Jinko panels.
Okay.
That sounds familiar. Jinko Solar. I think it
Okay.
might be Jinko, but I might be wrong.
Jinko
I do know
Solar.
the wattage. They are 400 watt panels.
And then how many do we have?
24.
Okay, so I'll get that panel count up to 24. Oops, that's 25, one extra. And then inverter for each panel?
Well, it's microinverters, so I guess the answer is yes.
Okay, now it's asking me for me to put the picture in. So I'm gonna put that in. And so what we're gonna do is crop this just about to those gold bands.
I see it.
Yeah. And then that one's actually pretty good. And then I can go next and it'll import it. And then I have to put this smack dab
I see it.
onto that level, this one right through south.
Okay.
And then I click next. And it says that my picture was not a true bird's eye view, so I took a terrible picture. But we'll be within 1.9% of accuracy.
Okay.
So if it was me in the real world, I'd go out and take a better picture.
Okay.
Just a slightly better picture. And so now we have it uploaded into the program, and we can take care of all of the shading impacts that we might see. I'm not going to take the house out here because we're not on the roof, and the house itself won't shade it once we're on the roof. But I will basically just trace around this tree as best I can, as if it would have potentially leaves on it. Okay, so we'll get a solar site report here, and what we're seeing is if this is our actual unshaded AC energy at 13,181 kilowatt hours.
Yeah. Nice.
The ideal, which would put our panel tilt somewhere else, is there. And now what happens when we're shaded the way we are, we're producing 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy.
So let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Our electrical contractor did not give me any reports, and I was kind of nervous. But when he sized the array for us at 9.6 kW, he told me it was going to produce around 10,000 kilowatt hours a year. So I feel like so confident in what our solar designer and installer did, because this pretty much validates that he did his homework.
Right. You know, we have, in the neighborhood of $1,100 of energy production from the system. And that's at 11.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So if we take into account that 3,000 watts that we're missing with that tree, right? So that's going to get us in the neighborhood of, I'm just going to do 3,000 times 0.115, $345 a year. So, right, that's the decision, like from an economic standpoint, does it make sense to take any of that tree down to try and capture more of that energy? Or does it make sense to leave the carbon as it sits and the carbon offset in that tree, and still take our 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy a year, right?
Yeah, and let's also note that this house has been calculated to use about 10,000 kilowatt hours a year of energy. So even with that tree and the shading that's estimated year round, and southwest orientation, because of the slight oversizing, or I shouldn't say oversizing, I'm going to say because of the accommodated size that our electrician made, just as is, this PV array is still calculated to produce as much energy as this house will use in a year. If we had just built and designed this to code, it would have been about 30,000 kilowatt hours per year, 3 times as much energy. And if you built this house to code and you still wanted to use solar energy to power it, then you were talking about over a 28 kW array. And the cost of that would be, I think, out of most people's reach. It also wouldn't fit on the roof. So all of that points back to the story of optimizing for solar in a new build, of taking care of the enclosure, balancing the enclosure and the mechanical systems selection toward super efficiency and low energy to reduce those loads, so that the remaining energy requirements left for this house can be met affordably with a PV system that fits on the roof. Heck yeah! Ah!